Okay, what I'd like to do at this time is open up for questions and comments, and we'll try to provide answers as best we can. Just keep in mind that we're just normal people like you, that we have our, our expertise and knowledge and background. And no, we shouldn't be watching the Celtics, Memphis. But anyway, let's. I'm going to open the floor. Sky, you can, direct how this works. So let's just have some conversation. Does anybody have any questions?
One thing to keep in mind in the room, when you push the Talk Now button, you have to pause 1, 2, 3 before you speak. And when you're finished speaking, you need to pause again before you release the button, or you cut off most of your conversation with the lag.
Pardon me. Captain Gringo had a good question, fellas. I really do appreciate you guys have done it, sounds like to me, although I came in very late, having had to step away, and I apologize for that, but it sounds to me like you guys have done, as many people throughout the states and the nation have done, a lot of homework and a lot of research. But as Captain Gringo says above, who are we going to utilize to hold their feet to the fire? I mean, do you and I and Jen and Captain Gringo and Jerry Davis and all these folks in here, do we have the ability to not only ensure that the courts are going to appropriately handle the situation? And I really, really am glad that you're, if my comprehension of this is correct, that you're approaching this from a RICO standpoint, because that is pretty dang wild, particularly in this in this system today. If you can even get the courts to go along with it, who are you going to get to enforce it? I mean, well, I'll let you guys answer that.
Oh, okay. In my research and inquisition, if you will, into the issues regarding the judiciary and their pernicious habit of just doing whatever they want, I have learned, and I have determined, just through reason and through study, that when you look at the existence of a judge, there are certain specific jobs that a judge should be performing. They just simply stand to reason. Otherwise, there's no reason for a judge. A judge is supposed to be a fair and impartial arbiter of the case. And in order to do so, there are certain fundamental things that a judge must do always. Otherwise, the judge is not acting as a judge. And in fact, if a judge is not acting as a judge, the judge, in fact, is depriving the parties of their right to due process of law. And so the fundamental things that a judge must do is to, of course, determine if the court has jurisdiction over the matter. But as part of that process, the court has a duty to declare the law of the case between the parties. And then the court also has the job of making a finding of facts which corresponds to that specific law of the case. And there's another third thing that the court must do, in addition to simply administering the case or managing it, is to apply the law of the case to the material facts to create a judgment or an outcome. And if the court refuses to do those basic jobs, then the parties are in fact deprived of the right to due process of law. And if this deprivation of rights is conducted willfully, which most certainly it normally is, then the judge has violated Title 18, Section 241, which is a felony crime, which is conspiracy against right. Because normally when the judge refuses to perform the basic judicial duties of judicial function, they are in fact done in conspiracy with another party. But also, when that judge fails to perform these basic judicial functions, then the judge is in fact violating Title 18, Section 242, which is also a felony crime, which is deprivation of rights under color of law. So, how we gain power in this situation is actually through our RICO suit. And when a judge deprives us of our rights, then we name that judge as a defendant as part of the pattern of racketeering. So,
hi there. Hi. Yeah, you're quite right on that. Randy Kelton of Rule of Law radio show, similar name to yourself, Randy. There, he explains that one quite clearly. That once your papers are ready to go and you take them to court to get them accepted and stamped, if they refuse them, you just add their names to that indictment. So, as you just stated, that they're involved in conspiracy to that very same crime that you're making allegations to whomever of. So if they refuse it, they're part of that conspiracy, thus their names go onto it. If you're actually in a court case and they accuse you of contempt of court or something obnoxious and ridiculous, you have the ability to present what's the word? Present a writ of mandamus, which basically takes the judge and his court to a higher court. So once you file out a writ of mandamus, then that court case is, from that point, effectively suspended. And any judge that's going through a writ of mandamus through a higher court, they don't want that on their record. So that is your threat. If a judge says, I'm going to charge you with contempt of court if you bring up that subject material again, you say, well, that is your right, Your Honor, you may do that, but then I will just file out a writ of mandamus and we'll see where that takes us. And you'll basically show the judge that, his threats of intimidation don't have that much effect on you. But I must sing praise to your video. It was a good presentation. Thanks. I'll open it up to any other questions.
Can I talk now? Okay. I think there's what you said was procedurally correct and perceptively correct. There was one thing that you said, though, was regarding indictment. An indictment is issued by a grand jury. Federal civil RICO is where Congress has provided via statute the right for private individuals to have what's called a private cause of action for civil damages which arise out of felony criminal conduct. Not just criminal conduct, but felony criminal conduct, usually where there's a year or more of jail time involved. And this is really the crack in the wall in terms of having an opportunity to put criminal issues before the general public as well as the court. According to the court rules, a factually sufficient and legally sufficient pleaded federal criminal claim is one that properly belongs within the jurisdiction of the court. What we will be doing when we file our civil RICO complaints, and we file them in particularly when we file them on a federal level, they will be included on PACER, which is public access to electronic court records. And anybody who has a PACER account can buy the documents that are in a case. It used to be 8 cents a page. I think it's now gone up to 10 cents a page. But when we file, for example, a federal civil RICO suit against the IRS agents and the DOJ tax division attorneys, and then the federal district and tax court and appellate judges, we're all engaged in this pattern of racketeering by misapplying the federal employment taxes, then we will download, buy and download our complaint, and then we'll put it on our website in conjunction with a YouTube video, so that this goes viral into where anybody who wants to can download the complaint for free. And so they have the, all of the allegations, everything, evidence that's included in the docket. They can access it all. So the criminal conduct will become public knowledge and widely known. Let's see here. Well, probably Tools for Justice. Oh, okay. Yes. Am I still talking here live? Okay. Yes. Oh, yes. Toolsforjustice.com will be our vehicle for downloading these documents. Okay. Someone have another question? Okay. Does anyone else have a question?
Yes, mentioned about fiat currency and stating China's growth is good. Well, China, just quick correction on that. China's growth is a false economy because what their state government doing is funding huge building projects that no one can afford to live in. So they've got these massive cities that are built where no one can afford to live in. So it gives the appearance that they've got growth when in reality they haven't. To put an analogy, it would be like if America made a huge maglev project right across the states and then made the pricing of the tickets so expensive that nobody could actually run on the maglev system. So there'd be plenty of work for people, but the actual money isn't there for the people to use it. It's false. People would have jobs, but they don't have the money to live. So the money is basically being recycled and going back into the corporations that are building the projects, but not into the hands of the actual people. So fiat currencies is generally falsely managed, is the point I was going to make. This is the problem with currencies. If it's not backed by anything, then they can print as much as they like and direct it to wherever they want. So it will give the appearance of growth, but it doesn't filter back down to the people where the money should be going. That's the problem with governments-run fiat currencies. I mean, the concept would be great, but unfortunately, the leadership in the world anywhere right now is not trustworthy enough to handle that responsibility. Greed is unfortunately what is running the world. They have no concern. I just thought I'd make that statement on China, and that was it. If anyone else has points or questions to raise, please feel free.
Let me make a brief response to that. While it is true, and there would be no argument that a lot of what's going on in China is fabricated, there is also a section of China that the middle class is growing in the north that is a direct result of the monetary policies in China. However, irrespective of what's going on in China, one of the things that's significant about North Dakota is that all through this economic downturn, which, by the way, the state bank has been in place in North Dakota since 1919. And the economy of North Dakota, even though it's one of the smaller economies in the entire country, is in the black and has been consistently throughout this entire bursting of the bubble. So there are some things that it just by the very nature of the way that it's being done, they are essentially like a mini Fed in the state of North Dakota. They aren't embracing the gold standard or anything like that, but there's just a principle of having the ability to regulate the money in that state that is showing that it has some legitimacy. And that's what we're trying to, we live in a world where interest is everywhere. It's always going to exist. The question is, can we provide the means? And the theory of what we're attempting to do is to restore bottom-up governance. That's really the principle that's behind everything that we're attempting to do. In going after the IRS, and going after the banks, of trying to restore a proper power of the purse and power of the sword to the states, what we're saying is top-down does not work. And it's shown that there is no accountability, as Captain Gringo saying, these pukes used to be accountable to us. That is absolutely correct. We need to restore accountability, folks. And guess who has to do it? The people. And if we as a people don't do it, we're going to get what we deserve. And we are getting what we deserve. And so the point is that we need to find ways to restore and empower the people again. What Tools for Justice is attempting to do is to provide some means for this to happen by using their own tools against them. So that's, I don't disagree, Sky, with what you're saying in the general sense, but I think that there's some good reasons to say that this has a point or opportunity of possibly being part of a chance to rectify some things. I think Doc has the next comment.
Well, I'm one that can be accused of being a little too focused sometimes. But again, and this revolves up to the what you said up above, and bear with me. These pukes, Captain Grindle said, these pukes used to be accountable to us. And someone said, well, you just answered that. You said, yes, they used to be accountable to us. And that's kind of my point. In the system today, yes, they will allow, on occasion, some small appearance of win for an individual or a small group. And yet, in the main, they do what they want. They discard what papers or what evidence or whatever that they want. And this is what I'm continually wondering how we're going to get around. When the system has become so corrupt that the things that are more observable are when the system does the right thing. You understand my point? How can you do this? Now, I get your people's power thing, and I'm all in agreement with that. Well, I'm probably cutting too fine a point on this, but I just don't understand how, if the courts are criminal, and to me, and if my perception is incorrect, please, if you could point out some examples of that, I would appreciate it. But if the courts are criminal, if the courts are corrupt, just as the Congress is criminal, the Congress is corrupt, just as the executive branch is criminal, the executive branch is corrupt, how can we expect to win through using their system? And just a side addendum on this, part of what I'm getting at is, have either of you read Frederick Bastier's The Law? There is a really critical point in there where he discusses what generally happens when a tyrannical system of power asserts itself. Okay, good, you get it. You usually have a fork, and it's a basic two-pronged fork. The people on this one side, they say, we're fighting this and we're not putting up with it at all. And the people on the other side, they say, we don't like this, but you know what? There's a loophole. We can get in on it. That's called legal plunder, which I personally want no part in. I'm not accusing you or saying that that's what you're doing, but I think that maybe even unintentionally, that's the way this leads when you get into their criminal system, which again has been clearly criminal since the 30s, and particularly since the 60s, particularly 1965, when the UCC was put into effect in all 50 states.
Doc, I appreciate what you're saying. We appreciate what you're saying. And you are right on in terms of the point of legal plunder. Randy and I really look forward to a conversation with you, just to share. We were just commenting as you were talking. But let me just kind of point out a few things. You're correct about how long the corruption has existed and how bad it is. The point, though, is that you have to play in their sandbox. So the question becomes, how can we play in their sandbox in such a way as we are able to use their own rules against them? One of the beautiful things about the federal RICO is it was never intended to be used against the government, but the Supreme Court has said it may be used against government officials who are corrupt. And the other thing that we have within our RICO complaint is we have the Civil Rights Act, especially in the IRS complaint. And the Civil Rights Act is absolutely, if you can find a way to use it against individual federal agents, it has a tremendous amount of power to it. And we didn't go into any details about the IRS RICO complaint, but let me just share a few things to maybe help clarify. We're not sitting by idly and just wringing our hands going, well, eventually we're going to get a chance to maybe go after this issue. But we've actually taken steps. Back in January, you noticed in the presentation in the video that we mentioned January 17, 2012, 3 individuals went before the FBI and presented a criminal complaint. That was my criminal complaint, and it was based upon a violation of Section 7214A of the federal section Title 26, the federal income tax statutes. And what 7214A says is that it is a felony crime for any individual IRS agent or officer of the Internal Revenue Service or a Department of Justice attorney or any agent of the government to commit extortion and willful oppression under color of law. And it's beautiful because this is the only section of the entire Internal Revenue Code that is statutorily sanctioned with penalties and fines against Internal Revenue Code agents. And it actually is the same wording that's all the way back to the 1861? The 1861 Internal Revenue Code. And so it's been there for a long time, and that's probably why they weren't able to take it out. But what it does is it puts some teeth into where we're able to go with this. There's a necessity that we begin to revitalize the grand jury system in this country, and there's a really great book called The Hidden Fourth Branch by Kelly Mordecai, who happens to be a part of the staff of Tools for Justice as well. We invited him to join us after we saw his book, and he's working to help people understand the power and authority of the grand juries. We need to restore that power. What we need to do is we need to revitalize many of the issues that have been forgotten. This is an awakening. This is an attempt to revitalize things that have been sitting dormant. The goodness is that they've been there historically. If we can figure out how to reawaken them, we're going to be in a great place. Now, going back to your issue, Doc, about the question of, plunder. There's two sides to the coin. This money has been stolen from the American people. This money has been embezzled and extorted by the government and the banks. And darn it, it's just a fair unintended consequence that before we take the banks down, we let some of the people of this country get their money back. Yes, it's fraud money, but you know what? It's the economic system that we live under at the present time. And yes, you're right. We're not saying, see, if we stop there, no, we're not stealing it back. We're taking it back legally. There's a legitimate fraud. And that money was, taken, and we're talking about, yes, it's a paper fraud currency. That's correct. But it's, okay, how else are you going to buy something in this country at the present time? Except through maybe a bartering system. Okay, but the point here, in my opinion, you're begging the question. Okay? You're begging the question of what can we do at the present time with what is existing? Fuzzy says silver coin. We're trying to restore a sound money system and a sound banking system. By the way, that has to be done by individual citizens doing the same thing that I'm attempting to do. Going to our state legislators and putting a sheet of paper in front of them that explains what are all these things that are being done by the federal government at the present time where they are infringing on our rights and they're actually threatening our life, liberty, and property. Here's what my question was to my legislator. Back on the same day that the National Defense Authorization bill passed with sections 1021 and 1022, which are the real sections of that bill that are a problem. I mean, we've been signing National Defense Authorization bills for years, but in this bill, they put in there a provision which is a threat to every one of us as individuals in this country. What I said to my legislator was this: what is the state of Florida going to do to protect me and the other citizens of this state in being taken away by the standing military of this country and put in undisclosed locations until the end of the hostilities of the war on terror? And that was the question that I raised. And the answer coming back from my legislators was, that is a very good question. And so then I followed up with a meeting with my legislator, who, by the way, is a Democrat and is fairly liberal. But she came out of that meeting saying that I had something that is important and worth continued dialogue. And all I'm looking for, by the way, is a policy study on this at the moment. However, I put in front of them some very positive suggestions and direction we can take with this. I showed her several bills that the federal government is either attempting to pass, such as SOPA and CISPA and the sections of the National Defense Authorization Act. And by the way, going all the way back to 1903, when we were all screwed by the Dick Bill. Excuse my French. But that was a bill that took our militia and federalized them into being the National Guard, which in 1982 and in 1998, the United States Senate, in two different constitutional studies of the Second Amendment, said that the National Guard is not the militia of the states. It is part of the standing army. And so we're sitting here without the proper check and balance of the state defense force, or whatever term you want to call it. And so there's a lot of things that we're attempting to correct. Do we have enough time? Maybe not. But we've got to take a shot at this, and we've got to awaken the American people to start understanding what power individual Americans have. I mean, think of it this way. What if, and this is the strategy we're taking in Florida. What if we were simply to go, yes, you're right, Doc, Texas still has a Texas Guard, but it's voluntary and it's not militia in this sense. A true militia is where every citizen of the state is armed and accoutered for service and has the ability to bear arms in that arming and accoutrement. And that was taken away by, probably a lot of it had to do with just the repercussions of the Civil War and the fact that, you know, in 1903 when the Dick Bill was passed by the Senate, there was still, I mean, we were talking essentially about the same amount of time, or actually maybe a little less, than between now and Vietnam. When those decisions were made, there was still, 600,000 men were dead that people still remembered as having been their brothers and sisters and uncles and parents, fathers. And so, there's a lot of issues here. But the point is that the people have got to start waking up, and you people on this call tonight, for example, need to understand how you can approach your representative and take some of your friends with you and say, we demand that you start looking at this as an issue of policy in our state, and you restore the vital powers of the person and the sword to the state of whatever state you're in. Now, here's the point. According to a proper understanding of the connection between the state and the citizen, if there is no protection, there is no responsibility and obligation of allegiance. That is the basis of the Declaration of Independence. I want to recommend to you, and I'll put it up here as a link, and I would encourage all of you to go look at these articles. Okay? Go to newswithviews.com and look at the articles by Dr. Edwin Vieira. Okay? He is arguably the top scholar in the United States on the issue of the well-regulated militia. By the way, that's the first half of the Second Amendment, which most people in this country do not understand. But that is the basic point of the Second Amendment, not the right to keep and bear arms. It's that by the way, I'll ask it this way, and Jerry says he wants to have a minute, but let me just finish by saying this. When I went to my Representative Vasselinda's office and I got in a conversation with her, I asked her this question. I said, Representative, what is necessary that the state of Florida can be free? And she started talking about the possibility of it being, money and economy, a sound economy. I said, no, it's in the first half of the Second Amendment. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, and we don't have one. Now, she has a little problem with that word militia because of things like Ruby Ridge and Oklahoma City and Waco and so on. That's correct. The word's been bastardized. So we changed the word. Okay? And so this is where we need to start getting a handle on this stuff, and we need to start demanding. The people need to demand that our legislators, starting at the county level and the state level, start getting their ducks in order. And by the way, You put together 30 or 40 people from your constituency and you walk in and get in front of your legislator, you're going to get their attention big time because they never have that happen except when there's something like an Occupy Wall Street. But if we can, and by the way, one of our strategies is we're going to start going to gun shows. And we're going to start talking to people at gun shows and start getting them to go back to their districts and doing this all over Florida. So anyway, let me give it to Jerry. He says he's got a comment, and I'll just be quiet for a minute, but I hope I've explained a few things here. Well, I'm not sure what's going on with Jerry. He's apparently having some technical difficulties. Jerry, just text when you're ready and think you've got things straightened out there. Sky Blue Eyes has a hand up, so go ahead.
The thing of it is the money we have now is counterfeit, and there is no way to pay this national debt. But what we do have is the legal system, and I'm not saying that on a whim because this is my profession. I'm a criminal justice administrative professional, and I know a lot of what the courts go through, and I know a lot of people's opinions are that the courts are corrupt, and there are a lot of courts that are corrupt. And the thing with it is that we have to get unity with people to go up against this stuff. No, not a probation officer. I actually dropped out of school for this year so I could work with David and Randy and the other groups that I'm in. I'm very busy promoting all kinds of stuff to get people to do this, to get them to go to their grand juries, to get them to file on the voter fraud. There's all kinds of things we can do, and we're doing them. No, Fuzzy. But anyways, the thing of it is if we sit back and we discuss what the problems are, then yes, we find out what the problems are, and we come up with solutions. The biggest problem we have right now is there are so many people coming up with solutions that they're not getting off their asses and doing anything about it. And granted, even if the RICO cases don't go through, or if any of the other stuff we work on does not go through, we're going to try again, because we're going to get in their face and we're going to do what we can physically to do it. But there are a lot of people nowadays that are going, well, this is wrong and that's wrong and you can't do this and you can't do that. Well, you can't do anything if you don't try. So by not filing the paperwork and not going through the procedure, and even if it does get your name dragged through the mud, which they can drag my name from here to Canada, I don't care. I'm still going to be in their face, letting them know that I know the law, that I know the Constitution, and I'm still going to support guys like David and Randy and Kelly and all the other people that we have in a lot of our network, because we are filing these papers. We are going in groups and in numbers to the grand juries. We are showing up at courthouses. And they're not going to go down easy. They're not going to go down without a fight. And to think so is not only unrealistic, it's stupid, because with that much power, they're not going to give it up. And the two choices we have, like I said a while ago, we have a choice to do this legally, to come together, to fight the court systems, to go in with what we know, with the law we know, with the Constitution that we know, with the Civil Rights Acts and everything else. And granted, Obama is a big obstacle, but Obama's not going to be here forever, and we're not going to be here forever. And by keeping this momentum going, then it puts the power back into the people's hands, because this is going to keep growing and people are going to keep uniting. So there is plenty of negative stuff out there to look at. And yes, the courts can be crooked, and I agree with Doc that they're criminal courts, but we're the ones that have to hold them accountable. And the problem we've had for the last 70 years, or actually 100 years since 1913 with the Federal Reserve Act, is we haven't done that. And so many people have gotten used, and not just here in the UK and Russia, I mean everywhere, they've got so used to counting on their government that they're not awake. So that's all I got to say.
Well said anyway, Jerry. You kind of hit on exactly what I was wanting to say for a few minutes there. But what basically Randy and David are doing are giving people an opportunity to actually do something. They're creating the paperwork that all you got to do is fill in and present it to the proper authorities, and you're taking action. If enough do it, you will get all these criminal government elements panicking. So, you know, we can all sit around and whine about how badly things are going in the world, and we can do that all day long, and everyone will agree that the world is going bad. But it doesn't change anything. The only time something changes is when you actually get up and make a difference. Instead of complaining, you actually go do something to change it. And, you know, as David mentioned earlier, you know, going to your state legislator and saying, well, we demand you do this. You know, if you make demands, he will either think about them or not get elected. So, you know, it is down to you to make an effort. It's down to all of us. You know, we can whine all day long and nothing will change. But until we do something, then things will change. And what David and Randy are proposing is that you go after them through the RICO clause or law or act or bill. It's a bit late here for me. It's like 4 a.m., so the brain's gone a little bit fuzzy, so forgive me on that. But yeah, the point is that all I'm saying is, you know, just stand up, be counted, do something. RICO statues. Thank you, David.
Hello. Welcome to TPS Roundtable Saturday night. We have a couple of people in to see us and speak with us tonight about mortgage fraud and IRS tax lawsuits. The cartoon we just watched is obviously an early preconditioning acceptance of something that shouldn't be done. Welcome back, Noble. Now I'm going to turn the mic over to Doc, Sky, Randy, and David. Enjoy the night.
Well, good evening. I'm not sure who should be starting this. My name is David, and Randy's with me. And that video that you just watched is a very clear example of where things have taken a divergence over the last 70 years, starting with the propaganda of the general government. And we'll talk a little bit about this. What we wanted to do tonight is to give a high-level view, if you will, starting with the concept of what we're really attempting to accomplish by everything that we're discussing here, and what we're seeing is starting to become a groundswell all over the country, and that is the ability to restore liberty throughout our land, freedom and liberty. from the grassroots, from the bottom up, not from the top down, because it can never happen from the top down. And what we wanted to try to accomplish here this evening is to give everybody a bit of an overview of what we are attempting to do as part of what many Americans and many people all over the world are attempting to do. This isn't just an American issue anymore. There are people from the Greenwich Mean Time line going east and going west all the way around the planet that are attempting to restore liberty because it is a part of the human condition to desire liberty. And so we're just one small piece of this. We met up with Jen and her website just last week, and obviously immediately felt a common resonance that we just would like to share from our point of view and see if it might be helpful. We represent a internet-based organization called Tools for Justice, and you can go to our website, toolsforjustice.com, and learn more about what we're trying to do. And you'll find, I see Jen did put up the link, and that was really helpful. The website is still in a process, and I think they always are, but we'll be doing some things in the next few weeks that are going to get the attention of literally millions of Americans, because we're going to be addressing two very significant control frauds that have been put in place by the general government upon the American people, and it is about to be, both of these are about to be exposed, not just from the standpoint of knowledge, but from the standpoint of legal activism. One of our little phrases that we use at Tools for Justice is that we're building an army of legal activists restoring the American dream. And that is what Tools for Justice is about. We're done protesting. We want to start prosecuting. And so if you have any interest in that, then I think you're going to find the things that we're sharing this evening will be of some benefit. The other things that we are participating in are issues having to do with election fraud. There's something that will be coming out shortly, even dealing with some of the current issues that are going on in this country with the primaries and some of the things that are happening where there's been clearly illegal activities going on, and we need to bring this to the attention of the powers that be, if you will, to make sure that it stops and that those perpetrators who have committed illegal activities are brought to justice just like anybody else would be. One of the things we're trying to accomplish here is that we would return to a sound social order within the United States, and literally that would flesh out into the rest of the world as well. And so that's kind of a general overview of where we hope to go this evening. In a moment, I'm going to put a link up here, and I think probably Sky Blue Eyes or somebody will make it available that we can watch a second video. And this is a video that we've put together. And forgive me that it's not available. We literally are waiting for a friend of ours who's working on it to get the link to us so that we can put it up. And so I'll be back to you. And the goodness is we can continue to talk until it's available, and it'll fit in fine with whatever point we're at in the discussions. I'm going to turn the mic over to Randy and let him continue the conversation. And one of the questions I have is, do you people see us in the video chat section of this too? And so I should be sitting in front of the video, or does that matter to people? I just want to, accommodate in whatever way it's necessary. There's two of us on one. Oh yeah, so you see Randy. Well, I'm David. Hi everybody. I'm off on the side here. So we'll just kind of try to poke our heads in every once in a while, and we'll just continue our discussion.